Ladies and gentlemen, on the next episode of the Rush Hour podcast, we have a former tennis star turned actor. She starred in Christmas movies, has been seen in Maxim magazine, and is Pam on Netflix's Jessica Jones, ranked number 14th in Hallmark's Queens of Hallmark Channel, host of Great Ones, the podcast. It's Susie Abromeit. How are you?
I'm doing well. Had some hiccups that I shared with you that I'm going through, but we don't have to get into that. But
I told people I wanted that you present as a perfectionist, which are my favorite people, because I have you here ranked number 6 in the U.S. in tennis, and then a Christmas movie star. And I'm like, is there not a better person in a more seasonal time to talk to Susie than right now?
You're making me blush. I'm fully blushing.
That's how I want to catch you. I want to catch you off guard and pepper you with compliments before I get into the nitty gritty. Tell our audience how we met.
How did we met? Oh my God. I was coming in real hot. That was a day that I was really going through it. And funny enough, like the day after I had a terrible flu, because I think I just revved my engine into the red. There was a personal matter that was pretty intense. So I literally, Leah, who's one of my best friends, and her husband were staying with me, and she had a big show. So basically, we had nothing left to give. I was going through something, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is terrible." And then she was like having this huge show. She's like, "Oh my God, this is terrible!" Like she had all this.
You didn't look stressed out at all when I met you. You wear it well.
Well, that's the many years of me wearing it well and my neuroses.
so the years of wearing it well, and maybe that's, I mean, it all really comes together here as a as an actor. You got to show up regardless of if you got dumped that day or what. You got to put out, the show must go on, right? Is the word. But and that's what's the beautiful thing about a podcast is then you can be real. Like you're a hot mess right now. I love it. This is great. Give me hot mess.
Well, here's what's so interesting. Oh, Dave. So when I came in, like I felt like I was coming in hot, like real. I just came from an audition, so I was dressed. I was playing like this. One of the auditions, I don't know, was like a first lady kind of outfit. So I had my dress on. It was so cold. It was suddenly when like New York dropped to like 35 degrees for like that day. And so, my God, I was dealing with just a lot of things just on my plate. And so coming in with like, a jacket and the whole thing, and me and Leah just sort of look at each other, just knowing of like, oh my God, we're really going through it. And then we suddenly have to break for a second because there's somebody else there. And suddenly it's like, oh, hey.
I'm like, hello. I'm very familiar, I've acted and doing stand-up and producing. Like I'm familiar with the anxiety that Leah was feeling because she was producing a show at the New York Comedy Festival.
And she crushed it. It went amazing, but she was crushed it. Adrenaline.
Yeah, I was just doing a spot, which is like the easiest thing in the world to just come do your act.
You're a pitch hitter. You just come in and you're like,
pitch hitter, doing my
guest
thing.
star.
Guest star. And yeah, exactly. I don't have to worry about the catering or anything. But it's almost like on a smaller level, it's like the Bridezilla kind of moment where there's a lot of things you have to take care of. So as Leah's friend, I was just there to walk to the venue with her and talk, just be a friend, But and by the way, what's funny is you said were auditioning for first lady role. How funny is acting where you're like 1 second you're the Maxim hot girl, and then you have to audition for first lady. What do they give you any roles in between that or what?
Actually, there was one. It was tentatively called Space Mouse. I came so close to booking it. It was the new Voltron thing. So I was pinned for that of playing like the mom of one of the Voltron space arms, like you get it. If you grew up in the 80s, you know what Voltron is. Anyway, it's like the cats that make up a giant.
Yeah.
The cat that.
Sure. Yeah.
The cats have that, like the arms. There's like these, and it's like all these robots make up one, and together they're, better together, stronger together, whatever. It doesn't matter. So there was like 3, and then there was like there was a couple of auditions I had. There was one for like a ballerina. but one for a first lady. So it was like literally back to back to back to back. But yeah, no, we met, and I literally had to just kind of like reel it in and be like, oh, there's people here. I have to pretend that my life isn't falling apart at the moment. But yeah, no, I'm when I think about, man, I think about the amount of times it's like you like you're probably my age where you get to be in your 40s, and then you learn how to just really say what you think, say what you feel. It's the no fucks 40s where you just you can just be fully authentic in yourself. You're no longer trying to do like a thing. You're no longer trying to
please the world.
please the world, because you realize even if you do try to please the world, like they're still not going to be pleased anyway. And you're like, why am I trying to force myself into this tiny little like jump dive into a tiny little cup? And like one of those circus performers or something like that we would see in like Bugs Bunny or something like that. Anyway, but it's just interesting where it's like you can, orient yourself properly in the world and kind of fix so many things, but then sometimes you can still misjudge people. Like even like I feel like as you get older, and I think that's kind of what I was going through, where I was like I just misjudged some people.
Are we talking about in a relationship sense?
Not in a romantic one, but just I feel in this past year I've just yeah, where you just have to you're just constantly learning, where I feel like for the last like several years I had removed the chaos from my life. So it's like, in every way all my relationships were really really strong and really intact and everything else. And then like there was a few things that happened, like I had my mom die. I had a best friend who committed suicide. And then it's sort of like it kind of weakens you. And so then I think, but then it also, it shows some of the relationships. So when you ask, like, when we met, I just was like, oh man, there was a moment where I was just kind of moving through it. And, here we are, we're talking.
This is what I love about podcasting, is because there's no expectation about where the conversation is going to go or what we're going to talk about. And I put together a framework of like, things I want to ask you. But I also,
that's what I do. That's exactly what I do. I have like a list of like things that I want to ask and I want to get into, but then like you allow the conversation to go where it's going to go.
It's the same thing you do on stage with comedy. And it's like in jazz, you have to learn the notes so that you don't need to play the notes, if that makes sense. And I know as an actor, the better you're off book and know your lines, you can kind of let them go and they come back and whatnot. But dealing with rejection, it must be hard to, it's like, I find one of the greatest challenges in the acting world is having friendships that aren't transactional. And the same things in comedy and anything in entertainment. Everyone's kind of competing against each other. Have you been able to find a friend group throughout these different, and I'm sorry to hear about your mom and your friend, but have you been able to find a support group that isn't transactional?
I have some of the greatest, I won the friend lottery. The one thing I think, both my parents are dead. So I feel like it really forced me to, like most of my family as well. So it's just, and I think even as like a young kid, it just really forced me to go outward into the world and really build relationships, friendships. And I think, I mean, family and friends are my number one value. So like love and family is like a number one value. And so that's turned into friendship for me, because my friends have become my family. And I work, one of my best friends and one of my other best friends there, we have a production company, and they say there's this, so I've been really kind of, thinking about this idea where people say don't work with your friends. I am like, abso-fucking-lutely work with your friends. Find out who the fuck your friends are. You want to know who they really fucking are when there's money on the line, when there's your careers on the line, when you're actually like, you want to have the people that you can really trust, So for me, I feel really lucky that I can go to, that I can put my life in their hands, because sometimes you have to do that in these situations, because if you're building something, like, you're like, okay, we're doing this together and I'm trusting you, you're trusting me. And like, hopefully we don't fuck this up and everything's good. But, and so I think if you have the same values, then that can work. And so what I've been finding out recently is, who you're in bed with. And, people say, don't work with your friends, don't work with your friends. It always gets messed up. It only gets messed up if they're the wrong friends.
Yeah.
Like, if they don't have the same values, if they don't, or if they aren't aware that they have these hidden shadows, that can, come out. And so, like, what I have found is, I think I've always put my relationships to the test because I'm always willing to bet on them. And sometimes it goes horribly awry, which I think that's what I've recently learned. And then the ones, we've, like, with my two best friends, Christy and Alona, we've had to really test them over and over and over and over. And so we've had the fights, we've had to mend it. We've had to, like, figure out how to work through those challenging moments as we're trying to build something. And so we've workshopped things together, but we've also, like, we've tested where the problems are. We've tested, like, we know each other so well, so we know, where their shadow is going to come out, or they're going to bite me, or, where I'm going to bite them, or, how that's going to look. And same with Leah. Like, even though we've talked about, she worked a little bit on a project that I did, and we've also had to test our relationship. So I know exactly who she is, because I think until your relationship is fully tested, you can't, it's kind of like in a marriage, you can't fully know who you're dealing with, where it's like, if, parents die, or, tragedies happen, financial strains, you want to know that you have, like, your ride or die. And if that immediately crumbles, that wasn't right anyway. Like, it's like, kind of like, when there's stresses, you want to get that shit out of the way already. If it can't survive within, like, it just falls over, it's like, oh, I'm dead. Then you're like, get out.
Yeah, this idea of facing adversity with your friend group is really interesting, because it is a chemical equation where two people or a group of friends come together, especially creatively, can have the potential to be something bigger than what they were as individuals. You see it with comedy groups.
Sorry,
yeah.
better together.
I love it. Maybe if the lady gets the flu, you'll get the part. Maybe. But this level of disappointment that we feel in this world of entertainment, you really have to learn how to deal with rejections. Like you mentioned earlier about being pinned. That's like essentially like you almost have the part. They're shuffling things around. It's so common to get ahead of yourself and think about the future or the paycheck or this is the next big break. Now, you've had huge things. You were on Netflix's Jessica Jones and Christmas movies and things like that. So, like, do you see your career as small rungs on the ladder? And how do you deal with times when you don't get the thing you wanted? Like, how do you like almost either spiritually or energetically deal with the setbacks when you don't have that control?
Well, my life, I don't know, has just been more than just acting. So we're producing, we're writing. I have a show in development with, I don't want to say who because it's not quite out there, but it's been in development for like 5 years. He's an Oscar winner. He's one of the best directors in the world. So we've had numerous projects that have almost gone. So I never want to be that person that is like, an Oliver Twist, please, can I have some more? Like, fuck that. So I'm just sort of, I don't want to feel beholden to somebody else's whims and ideas if I'm right for the role, if I'm not right for the role. So I'm a storyteller through and through. So I think, like, I love being behind the camera. I love writing. I love bringing those stories to life. So, when I got this 4-picture deal for Christmas movies, which was like a lot of money and it was incredible. And so that allowed me to focus more on other projects about how to film this, how maybe I can, put some of that money into the projects that I want to be doing. So, like, for instance, my mom had passed away and we actually it was like a year ago, 2 days ago. So, so when she died, or it was right before she died, where me and my best friend Christy, we were talking about like, you know, filming. So this other project that like has been with this Oscar winner for like ever and ever and ever, that we both created. And so he was, you know, taking that idea and running with it, developing a show with him. He's incredible. But then right before my mom died, I had no idea. She just died very, very suddenly. We were kicking around ideas. I'm like, there was this project. It was called America Goes to Therapy. Like, America's a hot mess. They need to get, like, she needs to get her shit together, is essentially. And so like, he's kind of taken that idea and run with it. But then there were so many other stories that weren't going to be used and weren't going to be told. And so, and so we were just trying to think about like how we could, you know, film something, you know, could we do a short? Could we do a proof of concept? Could we, and then we were like, can we shoot a pilot? And then when we like tallied up all the things, we're like, oh wow, it's on the cheap end. It's going to be $500,000 if we want to do it right. So we were like, great. And then, so that wasn't going to work. And so we're like, yeah, fuck that noise. So then my mom died. And then my best friend was like, what if, so she literally like with just the shirt on her back, like I called her and said, oh my God, my mom just suddenly like dropped dead, like out of nowhere, you know, like no warning, blah, blah, blah. So she comes to see me with just a shirt on her back and like a backpack, and just like literally just gets on a plane and is like there with me as I'm literally trying to move. Like I just had moved here to New York. I don't have a place to stay. I'm crashing at somebody's crash pad. And there's no furniture, by the way. So it's not even my apartment. He just had like an extra apartment just for like a crash pad. And like, there's like a blow up mattress and it's, you know, ridiculous. So, anyway, so like we have this crazy alchemical, magical, terrible, harrowing day of the 24 hours after my mom had passed away. And it was sort of this like existential sort of moment about life and death, my relationship with my mom, and, you know, the complicated nature of, you know, having like your parents that sometimes like not everyone has like a, you know, I'm not saying my mom was a beautiful person. Momming wasn't like necessarily like her greatest endeavor.
Right.
You know, so then I was like, you know, we decided, I was like, what if we did this short and, you know, put this whole experience into a short. So, you know, now we've completed that. We have like one more pickup shot that we want to do. And, you know, but we use that moment to be like, okay, can I turn this into art? Can I turn this into some alchemical thing? Can I, you know, it's like a filmmaker, you're always trying, we tell stories to try to understand our world. You know, it's like Shakespeare, back in the days when you would have like, the jester go in front of the king and say all the fucking crazy shit that are like, oh my God, you guys kill people and you're tyrants and you're terrible. Oh, but it's all a joke. Like, you know, the comedians are sort of the, you know, the canary in the coal mine, holding up a mirror to the world of what's really going on. And I think storytelling is the same. So like artists kind of can know things before the rest of humanity, kind of thing, where it's like, you know, that I think that's why you see this phenomenon in The Simpsons, and you always see this, or Family Guy, where you see these like things that happen before they happen, kind of thing. Because if you're paying attention and you're observing, you're going to see the pattern. You're going to see like the nature of things. And so then you just bring it to light. You're like, no, it was always there. We were just noticing. And so now it's like, you know, when people look back at like storytelling and, oh my God, this was like ahead of its time, kind of thing. And so, yeah, I mean, I think like in terms of what you're saying, rejection, it's not really, sure. It's like, you might not be right for the part, or you might, you know, you just, sometimes it's like, it has nothing to do with you. It's just like, you were the idea. Either you're the idea that the writer had or the director had in their mind, or you're not. And it has nothing to do with like how great your performance is. Sometimes it can help. And sometimes people can consider that if you do a really great job, but people are like, you're the guy or you're not the guy. And the amount of times that I've had to go through in producing, when I've like been producing, I'm like, I'll know within like 5 seconds. I'm like, you're the person, you're not the person, you know? And it's
And
like,
it could be like a really talented person and it doesn't fit with what you want to do.
totally.
At that
Yeah.
level, anyone who's getting the auditions probably bringing a lot to the table. You know, we used to have this. I wanted to take this back to the Christmas movies because we used to have this thing in the
Wait,
States.
you love the Christmas movies. You told me that you love them.
Big Christmas movie guy. Just watched a great one last night on Netflix, The Merry Gentleman. It's like a #1 Christmas movie. I give it like it was like an absolute blast, but I'm pretty critical of him too. But you do have to suspend a lot of the rules of other movies in the Christmas world. It's like, okay, we get it. You're a peppermint farm. You know what I mean? Like you just have to like go with it, right? And you played a hot chocolate barista, and it's like, I mean, that's so Christmas movie. But I wanted so in the comedy world, it used to be that networks would they would see the comedians perform at Just for Laughs Comedy Festival. Then they would pay them to hold on to them for pilot season in a development deal. They'd pay comics 6 figures, sometimes 7 or 8 figures, just to hold on to them. Is it the same thing with the 4-picture deal for Christmas movies?
Yeah.
Do they just buy you and say, we don't even know what we're going to use you for, but you got Christmas all over it? Tell me about that process and what was it like to sign that contract?
Okay, so Bill, so I had done like a cutesy movie. It was like one of those Hallmarky films. It was called Love and Bloom in Australia, and it was probably like a few months prior. And I don't think the two were like related at all, but it kind of all ties in. It was just sort of like just a very spur of the moment. I think I had done that film, but no one had. I don't think that Bill Abbott, who started his new network, I don't think he knew about that film at the time, or I don't know, like where I was on the list of who he went down to see who. So he was looking to do a pilot for a new network. So he had moved and jumped to starting his own network. And, I just got a call one day. It was sort of, I had been like getting into shape. Like I like after this experience that I had in Australia, I had worked with this nutritionist. I was having rosacea, and I think there was like a mold problem, and I was trying to clear my gut. So I had like lost a ton of weight. I was like in my fighting shape. Like I was feeling really good. And and then suddenly I just get a call out of the blue of, hey, we want to hire Susie for this film. And it was like, 200 grand. And it was like, so like these films, like they pay a lot, like they pay a shit ton of money. Like there was one film that I did, I think it was like 100 grand or 150 or something that, I got paid originally when I think I was offered like 50 or something for the first one. This was back in 2015, but I was trying to be a serious actor. Like, I think, like, I just came off of like Jessica Jones, and I was like thinking that would bring, like I was going for more of like a serious thing.
You don't want to be seen as going backwards, which is, probably agents tell you, they want to see you in a certain way, but
yeah. And so like, they were just kind of like, nah, let's not do like a Hallmark Christmas movie, blah, 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 blah. And so I turned down like the 50 grand, and then they came back with another film. Like, I don't know, it was like a month or two later, and they're like, hey, how about 100? And I'm like, well,
how funny.
I was like, guys, I don't know. It's like 2 weeks of work, and like,
Christmas is feeling pretty good right now.
Christmas is feeling pretty good. And I was like, you know what? And so that was a perfect Christmas. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that. That sounds awesome. What, 3 weeks of work? Fucking let's go.
So you agree before you read the script?
Oh no, I read the script.
Okay.
Read the script. It was really cute. It was adorable. And I was like, yeah, this isn't going to hurt my career. It's only going to help, because I was like, okay, I want to be producing other projects, and I want to be using this money, funding the projects that I want to be doing. So this is great. So fast forward to where I am when I get this call from Bill of he's starting a new network, and this is the pilot. Like, this is the very first movie that they did for the Christmas movies. And so I wonder.
This is the Great American Channel or whatever?
Yeah. And so I had done 2 films with Hallmark. And so he had originally been at the CEO of Hallmark.
Right.
So I'm sure that there was a list of like people, and I'm sure there was a lot of people at Hallmark that were in these overall deals. So he couldn't, like Candace, I think at the time was there. Danica, I think they were all at Hallmark. And so I guess I'm assuming that I was probably, I'm just, there's probably a list. You eventually went down and got to me. And I
Susie,
was,
you're a hot commodity. You're number 14 on Hallmark's Queens of Hallmark channel. Don't sell yourself short.
look, there's such a steeper list. There are people who have been there for years and years and years, and they have like a huge fan following. I was like way down on that list. So I got very lucky. I was in the right shape. I was in the right state of mind. I was like cleaning out my diet for like a month, and I was, not drinking, eating really healthy. Ba 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 ba. Um, Wait, was this during the pandemic? Wait. Hold on. No, okay. So I think I shot The Forever Purge, and I shot like King Richard. Unfortunately, my scene got cut with Will Smith. It was
Uh,
disappointing. I
were you, so
know.
what were you playing in that? Just a tennis pro or a,
No, I got it because when I walked in, I was like, this is my childhood. When I read the script, and I was like, I know all these people. I grew up with these people,
sure.
and so the casting director was like, "Oh my God, you're in it!" Like literally was like, "You got the role!" Like because I knew that world, but it was I was playing a real life New York Times reporter who did like a whole story, and unfortunately, I kind of looked at the script. I was like, I'm getting cut, aren't I?
What a
Sure
great,
enough, I got cut. But
what a
so
great
anyway, so
movie.
fast forward. So the Bill, so Bill, so he offered me this role, and so I was like ready to go. So the process, so I get flown to Romania. I'm all like, this is all very exciting. I'm like, hey, this is great. This is fantastic. Um, and um, yeah, and so then we film, but I treated it like kind of how I go into every project where I'm like, I'm hearing that this is the pilot of a new network. It's kind of a big deal. And I took it very, very seriously. And so I would rehearse with, my other co-stars all the time because I wanted to like be ready because there's not a lot of rehearsal time in these things. They're like, they shoot in like 16 to 20 days. I mean, some of these like I've shot in like 12 days, which is fucking insane.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like the bare minimum for a feature movie is usually like 20 days.
Yeah.
And then the higher the budget, you might go 40, 50, 60 days. So
And
yeah,
so
that's 6 to 10 pages a day.
no, it's crazy. And so you have to be so prepared. And so what this experience taught me was to work harder than anybody else. And so I think when I was on set, I was also because I had been producing and trying to, that has also been a part of my world. Like there would be a lot of issues because it's like it's on the lower budget, even though there's like a grand scope of like we're filming in these incredible like Romania and it's this incredible set, but with these the architecture and these incredible buildings, but there would be you're filming in 100-degree weather in winter clothes and you feel like you're going to pass out and die. And so a lot of people kind of felt like on the crew kind of the same. So I was trying to problem solve and be like, hey, can we get, I would like talk to this guy. I'm like, can we get an AC in here? Can we like problem solve here? So even though I'm like, you're kind of running the show a bit where you're also trying to help alleviate any problems or any issues. So that was also kind of something that I was like trying to do just to be helpful. How can I contribute not just as an actor, but like as a teammate, as like the quarterback kind of feeling of like you're the quarterback in the sense if you're number one for these films. And so I just put everything I had into it. And then I get a call like halfway through of Bill's so happy with these, the film and like, what he's seeing in the dailies, like he couldn't be happier, blah, blah, blah. And then, I just kept hearing, an email being like, hey, we want to offer you like an overall deal. And I had never been offered an overall deal. And it's an insane amount of money. And so, yeah. And so then like after, and I had at this point, I had been used to like not working for like a year or two. So I was just so grateful to be working. So the amount of like gratitude I had to just have this opportunity. And I was in such a state of I had gone through a lot. In the years prior, like there was a fire that burned down, I lost everything in a fire. I had a terrible breakup. There was so many death, like there was a lot of death in my family. It was like my aunt died, my uncle was murdered. It was like great aunt died. Like
Wow.
in the span of a year, there was like the craziest shit that happened. It was, all these people had died within a month. Like these people, boom, boom, 3 people had died in a month. And then I go through a breakup, like a terrible breakup where I was living with this guy and we were not right. And then like a fire happens like a year later and I lose everything I've ever owned, every photo album, and so it was sort of like,
Was that freeing at all to lose it all? To lose the
um,
physical?
yeah, it was one of the greatest lessons of my life where I'll be okay no matter what. And also, you use everything that's terrible. So every time that like there's like something terrible that happens, you use it and you alchemize it. So you use it as energy. So like there's no wasted opportunity. So like what I did was, okay, like I'm going to have a timeout with myself and kind of like sit through and, because I couldn't get a job, I couldn't work. Like I was like traumatized also on top of that. So I'm like, okay, let me deal with this compounding trauma that's happened. Let me deal with just all this other initial trauma. And then let me go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And just was like, and yeah, I think that's where like I completely fixed my life. And then, all these other things that just would magically happen on the flip side of, there's sort of this manifesting power is that when it's like these huge pops of energy where something terribly tragic happens. But then on the other side of that, it would be like this magical manifester of energy where it like perfect example when I learned about this, like, this whole fire thing. Um, I was like, okay, let me use this as an experiment to see what I can manifest. And so I lost everything in the fire. And next thing you know, I'm like staying at Ben Affleck's house. Like, like he was like, we went on like a date and then he was, I was like, oh my God, I don't have a place to stay. And then he's like, hey, come stay here. So there I am. Just like, and I just remember having like his poster on my wall as like a kid and
Did you meet him on Raya? Is that where?
we met on Rye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I saw he had that one person call him out for not believing it was him. So
the sweetest person you've ever met. Like, I think we just ended up just being friends. And
you're a fellow Bostonian, so there
yeah,
must have been some.
no, he was so sweet. And we were just sort of staying across from each other. Like, so I was staying in one room, he was staying in the other room, and we were just kind of like, it felt like summer camp. He was like, hey, you want to go downstairs and get an ice cream? And so there was a moment when years ago when I wanted to work with him, fast forward to like, I'm reading lines with him for his like, the way back. And so we're going over it. And I'm like, hey, do you want me to help you run lines? He's like, yeah. So I'm doing all these like crazy voices, like, yo, 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 like going, but like, cause all these characters are like really like hilarious. And so I'm going through all these characters and I'm like, what is life? And so I'm like, here it is. It's my fucking birthday. Like today, I'm like, yeah, today is my birthday and my house burned down like 2 days ago. And thanks for letting me stay here. And he's like, it's your birthday today? He goes to his room, grabs a huge wad of cash, and is just like, here, buy yourself like something great. And I was like, what is this, like 4 or 5 grand? What? This is that man will forever just be like, he's the sweetest gentleman. Like he was like, hey, I don't want to take advantage of the situation. Like I want to be, I want to respect myself. And I think we're both in, like, he was going through divorce. I was going through a fire. And so, when this moment happened, when I just remember, I think I had auditioned for one of his movies. I forget, Live by Night. And I wanted it so bad. And I was like, God, I just want to work with Ben. And then it turned into whatever this situation was. And I was like, well, this is a weird, like, this is where am I right now? So
Yeah.
for a whole week, I was just like mailing stuff to, he's like, can I mail stuff to him? He's like, yeah, no, it's fine. The kindest, most generous person of all time. I mean, but he is kind of one of those like kings where he's like running an empire.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's like, if you're in front of him, he's so present and he's so there. But like, when he's doing his thing, he's just the kind of person who's just present wherever he is. And so you're sort of out of sight, out of mind. So, I mean, I appreciated he is just a beautiful, beautiful person. Like, we just kind of ended up just being friends in that situation. And he was, I got to see the best version of him. And he was going through a lot, I think, at that point. But when the fire happened, I was like, wow, I wonder what else I can do. It was sort of like this moment when it was like my grandmother had just died even after the fire. So it was like another thing happened. It was like my grandmother died. And I was like, okay, is this like a Make-A-Wish thing where like God is like, we feel bad for you. This kind of sucks, but you get a wish.
You get Ben Affleck right, after a bad fire.
After a bad fire. So I'm like, all right, okay, God, I want to hang out. I want to be friends with Dave Chappelle. Next thing you know, I'm sitting next to Dave Chappelle in Nobu, and he's like, hey, we start chatting, and he's like, hey, you want to go to the Peppermint? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to go to the Peppermint. Like, it was like some party. It was like Nipsey Hussle, or was right before he died. And so we go to this party, and there's Jay-Z, and there's like Tiffany Haddish, and she's like, let's go. So they're smoking weed with Snoop Dogg, and I'm, just me and another friend. And then I just kept like hanging out with him and his crew for like probably 6-7 times, just like rolling with Dave's crew. And so I was like, okay, there's something to this on the other side of something terrible. There's something terrible that's going to happen, but on the other side, I can like make a wish, and then somehow it'll just happen. I don't know how it works.
I love how you explain the transfer of energy, because that's all we are, right? And if you don't do something with the energy, and if you kind of eat it, then that's what causes cancerous, aspects of the body. That's what causes bitterness. And so many people just like swallow and grit their teeth over their tough times versus using that to challenge them to be a better version of themselves. And look, I mean, like, I've seen this. My favorite hobby is I play baseball. I pitch. I fail 99% of the time. So when I find success, it feels so great. And the same thing with comedy. So you spend 10 years sucking, and then you have a good set, and someone's like, oh, you're funny. And it's like, well,
you're so good, by the way. I loved you. You were so, so good.
Well, thank you.
So good.
And I felt the itch to come to New York, because I felt like there was something for me there. And my wife was like, yeah, you should go. You should go do that set and be free. And, and we have those moments that things just work out in that direction. I did want to talk about this. I saw an old video of yours, and I'm talking an old video. I did my research. I found a young Susie, the age of 12, being interviewed on Boston Channel 5 about your tennis career. How do you go from that and again, talk about, like you said, the King Arthur, did you move to Florida because you were good at tennis? Is that what brought you down to Florida? And I have an aunt from Concord, Mass, and it's also the home of Henry David Thoreau. And I'm a big
where I grew up.
I know, I'm a big transcendentalist. I love all of the ideas of going confidently in your dreams and living the life you have imagined. And it's funny that hundreds of years later, there's, I think, more of a new age movement now towards that. It's like, all right, the pandemic wiped out a lot of people's like realities. And now here you are producing, doing all the, being in control of your destiny. You have a new podcast, great ones. You're connecting yourselves with people that have achieved great success through your podcast. You're creating a sandbox that is a magnet towards like-minded people. So how do you go from tennis as a 12-year-old to the creative world and taking what you learned on the court and into the onto set?
Well, I think it's the same mindset as an athlete, that if you work harder and you're more disciplined, I mean, athletes are just the hardest workers, because if you put in the time, you're going to be great. And it's just, 10,000 hours, like Malcolm Gladwell, where it's just, you have to put in those hours, and it's just, And I think like those are the things that I learned is within your control. Like I can't control like if I'm wrong for the role. I can't control what other people are going to think. Like there's just so much about this business like is out of your control. And so, you know, how I approach a role, like so with this, you know, overall deal that I had, I use that as like, okay, how can I make these they're, you know, shot in like 12 to 14 days, which is an insane amount of turnaround. And I'm like, if I'm either going to phone it in and it's going to be shit and I'm going to be like, it's going to be, no one's going to want to watch this, or I can do the best with what I'm given and try to make it the best I possibly can and, you know, rehearse the shit out of it, which is what I did. I would like do a full day, you know, of filming and then go back, you know, with my co-stars and be like, we need to rehearse this. So like we would like have a full day of filming, you know, like 12 hours or whatever, how many hours. And then we would go back and then start filming for like several or not filming. We would rehearse for another several hours to make sure that we were ready for the next day. So it was like, you know, you have to do what you have to do if that's the amount of time that you were given. So I use that same discipline of wanting to make it be the best. And so that's kind of where, you know, also great ones had come in about understanding like what it takes to be great in all the aspects of your life. And I just listen to podcasts all day. That's literally just what I watch. And so I was always interested in like the top podcasts, like say a Joe Rogan. He has some of the best minds that come on the podcast, and he asks, you know, it can be kind of like them shooting the shit, or you know, but he asked a lot of thoughtful questions, and so you're always hearing what the best minds have to say about things, but then also like breaking down like what makes somebody great. And so I'm always trying to refine those things because I think, you know, just being an athlete, like where you're trying to be great at something, you're trying to figure out like what it takes to be the best. And, you know, there are so many sacrifices and there are so many things that you have to do. And there is so much discipline. So I think like it feels pretty right on time with like the storytelling aspect, because I think if you look at all the top actors in the world, they're all producing, they're either like writing and they're directing and they're very disciplined. They approach things, they're very similar to an athlete in my estimation, other than like, you know, if they go on benders and they, you know, do some drugs that can only go, you know, maybe in their 20s, they can only do that for so long until they have to course correct.
Yeah. You know, that's I don't drink.
Athletes do that too, by the way. In their 20s, they'll fucking drink oblivion.
Oh my God.
Roddick would get so fucking drunk and then play and win the tournament.
Yeah. I mean, David Wells pitched a no-hitter, a hungover. You see people, Doc Ellis pitched one on LSD. It's like the things you can get away with. I'm just at the stage now. I'm at the stage now where I'm like, I'm so busy that I have to be selective of when I drink. Like I didn't drink in New York. I drank at the airport lounge on the flight home because that was finally the moment that I had 3 hours to relax. But yeah, I heard that the greatest indicator of success, and I love thinking about this because I'm always like, what do I have to teach my son to give him the tools for success? I can't just give him anything. That's the cheap way, and he's not going to appreciate it. Like, how do you teach someone something? And I heard this, and it stuck with me, that the greatest indicator of success is how much grit someone has. And grit isn't IQ based. It is hard work, perseverance, belief in yourself. It is all those things that a boxer has that just keeps them from accepting defeat. And it sounds like you just have a lot of grit. Like you're just continuing to move in the direction of your intuition.
I've heard that before. I have a lot of grit. Yeah, I do.
So anyhow, I'm looking forward to checking out how your podcast grows because it's new. What are your thoughts for Great Ones? Because you've only you're only several episodes in. What are your goals for it, and kind of like how are you going to attack this?
I mean, we're going to have Rachel Ray on.
Ooh, nice.
Or I'm going to have Rachel Ray on. Yeah. So
when you run your own company, you say we a lot, but it's you. Yeah, we're doing great. I'm the same way. I talk as if I've got a team of people. It's like, yeah, no, we're crushing it.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. I think I'm just so interested in, understanding, like when I had Peekaboo Street on, she was breaking down like how she won the gold medal and how like she handled that. How did people treat her differently? Because just because you win the gold medal and you think life is going to just be hunky dory, but then there's a new set of problems. There's a new set of like things that you have to deal with that you didn't account for. So there's so much that I just I want to understand human consciousness, and I want to understand, like, one of my values is truth and beauty. And so beauty being the sense of like it's going for the highest good, and I think us living our truth, but also being our greatest selves and the best version of ourselves, I think is why, partly why I think we're here to love, and I think we're here to understand, and I think we're here to uh, be the best version of ourselves. And sometimes we fail miserably all the time, but I do think, yeah, I think we're here to learn those things. And so I'm always trying to figure out like what makes somebody great and how to do it with grace and how to do it um, not at like a means to an end, because you can be super successful at the cost of everyone else, and so that to me isn't great.
Yeah, I mean, how good is it to climb the mountain if you don't have anyone to share the view with? It's like you can have a lot of collateral damage in those pursuits, but then it might not seem worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because for athletes, it is pretty savage. There's a winner and there's a loser, and that's like it's very binary. It's very like win. It's like the whole bit with Seinfeld where it's like, what did he do? It was like gold medal, loser.
Yeah.
Gold medal, you're nothing. Hero of the world, no one knows your name. So,
Versus the theater
literally
world,
by an
it's
inch,
all
it's like literally that inch of like, like the runner who's here.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you are going to, if you fade into obscurity. And so like, there is something to be said about, athletes where, they're doing the impossible and they're doing the most extreme things possible. It's like figure skaters, or ski racers where it's like just they have to push it even further than the last person, or the runner has to push it even further than, that other. So there's just, it's dangerous. And so I think it's like the gladiators in the arena where we're like, oh my God. And it just continues to up its level and up its level. But there is also a savageness in that. I was talking to Marty Fish, who was he was a top 10 tennis player, and how he had to literally, like, Andy Roddick talked about this too, that they, you have to be the most savage person in the room for like being an athlete to be like on that level. You have to be willing, like Serena Williams, when she was like, I'm going to rip your throat out. And I'm like, well, that's what I mean, I'm not saying it's like right or wrong. I'm just saying it is, it's like you see all the top athletes, like, Michael Jordan just talking shit nonstop. And I just think there's just a savage mentality that if, you're standing in I just think, if you're putting the gladiators and expecting them to be just very like nice and cordial, you have like a Federer, and that's like, sometimes you occasionally get that, but there still is that savage inside. Maybe you don't see it, but it's still savage, so maybe some people are a little bit more polite about it, but most times there just is that rawness, which is why we want to also experience that primal feeling. I think also like why we're here is to, we want to get to this higher realm, but also we are in these bodies and we have primal needs, and also like that savage that like would be in the cave and have to defend, the family from the lion. And, there's the, that's a part of us that I think still very much exists. So I think that's why sports are so important, because it's like, or like Gladiator that's out right now, and why boxing is like the biggest thing ever, because we get to experience that savage like shadow that gets to just beat some other person to a pulp.
Yeah,
So I'm like, that's just interesting that like everyone else is watching this, and it's the what, you know, one of the most watched sports. So I'm just like, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's like social position, and it's if you can define yourself as a strength in society, whether it be by being an athlete or someone who can make someone laugh or someone who can, whatever it is, you're telling the world. And that's another reason why people generally are attracted to taller people, because you have a greater chance of success with height. It's weird. It's primal. It shouldn't be that way. But more CEOs are tall. It's like either be really tall or really short, where you're like a, Jeff Bezos type and you're just a maniacal person. But yeah, no, it's interesting.
Napoleon? Yeah.
Yeah, it's in Napoleon. I mean, it's interesting to break it all down, because I think when it comes down to it, you talked a lot about energy and alchemy and taking whatever stories and scar tissue that you have and turning it into something that you own and you share. And that's all creativity is, right? Is sharing and being enough and sharing it with others. And then luckily with social media and with podcasting, your audience will find you if you make something worth speaking about. And it looks like you're well on your way. Can I wrap this up by pitching you my next Christmas movie I'm going to have?
Oh my God, I love it. Yes.
All right. I've never said this publicly. Here it is. So I'm from Rhode Island. I don't know if you know that. I'm from Newport, which is a very...
my mom was from Rhode Island.
Oh, yeah. Newport. Providence. They're Italian? Yeah, probably.
Italian, of course. She's Italian.
No, I'm the Irish sailors in Newport. So
she's also Irish too. So she was Irish, Scottish, and Italian. But yeah, the very like
big drinker.
Mafioso.
Yeah. So here's the story. It's National Treasure meets Fool's Gold meets Christmas movie, and it's a contractor who's renovating a home in Newport, Rhode Island. One of these old seafaring homes, and he knocks down a wall and finds a treasure map in it. Now he's trying to make amends with the female in the story here, but she's not buying it, because it's it's one thing versus the other that he does to avoid love and things like that. So it leads him down a pirate, a sort of treasure map that leads him down to the Caribbean, where it all takes place in the Christmas season. He has to find the treasure and make it back home before Christmas. And maybe just maybe the female lead ends up, saving him in the Caribbean.
Do they hunt the treasure together?
I can't divulge how it goes, but one would think that all forces for good come together to find the treasure. But it's not fleshed out. The point is, I like it. I like treasure movies. I love gold. There's something about in my DNA. I like gold. I watch every gold show, and I like. Were
you a pirate? You must have been a pirate in your past life.
Big doubloon energy, and I like.
I come from Viking. I come from Rollo. So my great whatever, how many grandfathers back, Viking. Rollo, the Viking king, pirate, ruler of Normandy. So my
gosh, yeah, you got that Nordic, you got that. So that's where your gladiator energy comes from. It's the Viking blood.
Honestly, my mom was a force of nature, and she's such a force of nature. She, in a blizzard, her car got stuck with her husband, and she ran home in her tiny little like tennis skirt in a blizzard with just a jacket on. She was like, okay, she's like 70. She's like, I'm going to run home, and I'm just going to get the car and be fine. Blah, 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 blah. Like, this bitch runs home in like 5 miles in 70 in a blizzard. Who are you? I heard this story with Kurt because he was there. I was like, it was probably a mile. And he's like, no, it was like 5. I'm like, there's no fucking way. But this bitch would run. And when I say this bitch, I'm like,
I love it.
But like she would run 3 miles a day at 70. So that's why it was like, but yeah. So I have that force of nature kind of, and a lot of sailors in the family.
Well, there it is. Viking Susie, host of the new podcast, Great Ones with Susie Abromeit. It's Abromeit, right? It's might, like I spelt it Might, so I wouldn't mess that up.
Yep.
Abromeit, but it's MEIT in real life. And we've learned so much about you. So much more than just the hot chocolate barista.
No, I
And
mean, that's fun. Go watch it because it's actually out right now on Sony PureFlix. So I literally just like reposted that. So the hot cocoa Christmas is like that was the pilot that I did.
well, I tried to find it. The trailer, you look beautiful. I mean, it's very well shot. I mean,
It's
it's like
very well shot.
very. So, I
Yeah,
mean, those movies. I mean, yeah, you're tailor made. When Leah said, "Oh yeah, she does. She's been in some Christmas movies," I was like, "Of course she did," because like you walked in like, "Hello, I'm Susie," and I was like, "Oh yeah, this bitch over here." All right, Nordic Susie, Viking Susie. Thanks so much. I'll post a link to your podcast in. Good luck and keep on crushing it.
Dave, thank you so much. You have to be on my wait. Come be on my podcast.
Whenever you need me, I'm here for you.
Yeah,
All right. Thanks again.
done. Okay.